The foreclosure workshop was advertised primarily in church because this has always been my desire to start in church. It is born out of a passion to help others. It's as simple as that. And I think that there are many people who need help. The foreclosure issue has affected lives. It has affected families in so many devastating ways. You've had divorces, you've had suicides, you've had separations, you've had depression, anxiety, mental illness, mental disorder, because it's a very stressful situation. So this morning I'm going to come and give you some enlightenment on foreclosure. Number one thing I want you to understand is foreclosure is not new. It's been around forever. It's a legal option to any lender if you default on your mortgage. Meaning that if you don't pay your loan, they have legal recourse or legal actions that they can take. So it's their right. It's just like if you don't pay a car, they're going to repossess the car. In states where it goes through the judicial system, it may take up to a year or even more before the lender can actually foreclose. That's why when you talk about the hardest hit states, if you look at them like Florida, California, Georgia, Tennessee, those areas, the hardest hit because the lenders can just go like this before. Within 2-3 months, you're out. They resell the house, whatever they want to do with it, and get their money from it. And that's why we have such a huge problem in states like that. And the best options is to know the process and to understand what is legally, that you are legally able to do. With the onset of the what you call subprime lending, greed. See, a lot of times greed destroys us. The greedy individuals, their actions affected the whole nation. They started selling the stocks relating to those homes. They were homeowners who couldn't afford it. Normally, you couldn't afford that home. I'm sure you can think of friends, relatives, people you heard of who bought a house and you wonder how, with the salary that they make. How can you afford this home? But these lenders knew that they couldn't afford the home and sold it to them because there was a profit in it for them. They were doing those bulk, when you start going into stock onto the market, they were doing those bulk sales to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and they were just amassing it and getting rich. But when that was discovered, that's why they say the subprime lending caused a collapse, economic collapse in America. And like my brother always says, when America coughs, the rest of the world sneezes. And it causes it affected not just us, but so many lives in so many different ways. I never knew the extent or the power of the real estate market until that happened. The collapse happened from 2008. It affected jobs, homes, families, lives, so many things. Because that's when you heard of the biggest layoffs, companies closing down, businesses folding, and that left a lot of people unemployed, homeless, or in a state of foreclosure. Here are the statistics for foreclosure. About 1.4 million homes are at some stage of foreclosure. That was in May, according to data provided by CoreLogic. And 1.6 million more households were behind on payments at the start of 2012. You see, our little gathering is not a reflection of what's really happening. Pride, fear, wrong decisions keep people from finding out the truth about what you should do and how you should do it. It says, online foreclosure market reality track estimated that while foreclosures dropped slightly nationwide in February, from January and from February 2011, they rose in 21 states and jumped sharply in cities like Tampa to 64%, Chicago 43%, Miami 53%. It also jumped in Atlanta. And that's evident when you drive around certain neighborhoods, the amount of homes that are abandoned or in foreclosure, or they have a notice on them. It says over 2.2 million American borrowers have lost their home to foreclosure since July 2009. Another 720,000 are in some stage of foreclosure. He says, I would put money on 2012 being a bigger year for foreclosures than 2010, said Mark Seifert, Executive Director of Empowering and Strengthening Ohio's People. And these are the realities that we're facing. These are the statistics. And I strongly believe that there'll be another wave of foreclosure coming again before we get over it. And what happens is complacency too. A lot of people are complacent. They believe, well, I'm doing fine, I've got my home, I've got this, I've got my job, I don't need foreclosure. Why am I coming to a workshop? Well, I don't need this. I'm good. But think about it. How many people you know who were there and you're shocked when you find out they're an estate investor who had his office, he had his home, he was living the life. He was cruising in life. When this occurred, they lost everything and had to sleep in their office. Take showers when the staff wasn't there down the hall. It brought them to their knees, which means nobody is immune. You don't know tomorrow, especially if you have not saved well and prepared well for the foreclosure, for any emergency. Prior to the subprime lending crisis, you had divorce, you had death, you had illness, emergency situations, lack of preparation for emergency, poor budgeting. All those were contributors to foreclosure. So none of us can say we're immune unless we have taken very serious steps to ensure that if those situations occur, we can still cruise with the month. But when the reality is most Americans live paycheck to paycheck, they can barely save $50 a month in case of an emergency. So tell me, are you okay just cruising? No, none of us are. It's a false sense of security. Because when I told people, tell me, I don't need this, I'm fine. I don't have a problem. Yeah, you don't have a problem now. But you see, the Bible says our people perish for lack of knowledge. Knowledge can empower you. Knowledge can strengthen you. Knowledge can give you direction. It can give you vision. It can help you to build a framework to avoid it. What is foreclosure? It says it's a legal process by which a lender sells or repossesses a parcel of real estate because of the homeowner defaults on the mortgage payment. Okay, we spoke about the judicial and the non-judicial. It can happen to anyone, but there are solutions. Now, what we think is going to be there for us, we're going to get a rude awakening. The Obama plan is not meant to be forever. It's a temporary fix. Actually, it had expired the time, and they extended it because the problem was such a big problem. So they extended it to help more homeowners. But it's not a fixture in the mortgage, subprime and predatory lending, which was what I spoke about. That lenders, loan officers tell you to buy a house, and then human beings, we want to have the biggest house for our friends to come and see. Oh, wow, you have a... But every night you go to bed, you're crying, Lord, how will I pay the mortgage next month? It's not worth it, people. It's really not worth it. And that's what we call, they prey on you. When they look at your salary, they know you can't afford it. But then you, on the other hand, that's your dream, a lifelong dream. You work hard, that's your toil and sweat. That's your symbol of, look what I have done in my life. That's why our children suffer too. Because we're working 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs to pay the mortgage. There's nobody to raise them. Then you have the maintenance of the home. It doesn't stay beautiful just like that. All those realities start to set in. Maybe you could afford the mortgage, but when all of those things come into the mix, guess what? We have issues. And that's where we face foreclosure.